Hi there, welcome to Urbinary, the podcast cataloging the everyday and extraordinary in the city.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Urbinary. I'm Giulia and today I'm here with Maisa Totry. Maisa is from Haifa. She's an architect and an urban planner. She's currently a postdoctoral fellow at the Haifa University and a fellow researcher at the Urban Clinic at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Her professional background includes extensive work within the civil society, concentrating on spatial planning and transportation in Palestinian towns in Israel. Previously, she represented environmental organization in the Northern Regional Planning Committee in Israel. Her practical experiences have significantly influenced her academic pursuit, and she maintains active connection with the organizations such as Citizen for the Environment, BIM.com, and Sikoi Ufuk, where she served as a member of the board of directors. In academia, her research focuses on urban complexity and informal planning, exploring the intricate dynamics of urban spaces and their evolutions. Maisa explored reconstruction of Palestinian urban identity in Haifa, emphasizing the role of informal practices in reshaping social dynamics amidst settler colonialism. It highlights the challenges faced by marginalized Palestinian minorities in establishing insurgent urban spaces and examines the impact of historical events and contemporary conflict on the sense of coexistence within the city. Hi Maisa, it's very nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Urbinary.
Before we start the discussion with Maisa, the Urbinary teams want to express solidarity with the Palestinian people. As young professionals and academics, we understand the importance of having a place where we can discuss and fight for our ideologies. We are lucky to have such a place, as in Gaza today there are no universities left. Destroying university is symbolic because they are places for change and where the fight can happen. It can lead to movements of people that are able of changing the world. With Maisa's words, we want to show how much urban planning and urban studies more generally can be instruments to fight colonialism and occupation. We want to give space to Palestinian research with the hope that one day we will see freedom for the people of Palestine.
Urbinary.
You have described your abstract as an understanding of how Palestinian urban identity experienced a sort of rebirth. We are curious why you consider urban identity crucial in today's world, particularly in places where maybe expressing one's identity might be challenging sometimes.
I think in general, studying urban areas is becoming much more important, even in urbanizing societies, such as the Arab Palestinian society. Specifically, the Palestinian society have gone through urbanization process during the last beginning of the last century, and it rised from 30% being part of the urban space until for during 20 years of the British Mandate, it rose to about half of the population living in cities. This urbanization process was deconstructed when, during the establishment of the State of Israel, when most of the urban infrastructure and urban population was deported outside of the Israeli borders. And so during the past 70 years, since 1948 until now, the Palestinian society have gone through another urbanization process, going back to living to the cities and shaping their Palestinian identity, again, in different circumstances, in an insurgent and colonial context. So it's particularly interesting to invest this type of process. In general, I would also think that it's, as a worldwide phenomena, when talking about high percentage of population living in cities, the role of cities that is becoming in the globalization area, becoming more crucial and more important than the state. Cities are are offering more services to citizens, are becoming more important on the world map, with connections to other cities abroad, and it's breaking the boundaries of the state. In that sense, Haifa does that also. Within the Israeli state, there's no connections to the Arab world, not to the West Bank, and not to Lebanon, and not to Syria or other places. But the cultural rebirth of the Palestinian urbanist movement that is happening in Haifa, it is able to connect to artists and to cultural performance in Ramallah, in the West Bank, in Beirut, through the internet and through the web. So in that sense, the city is able to break through state boundaries.
Okay, thank you very much for your insightful answer. So, as you also said, cities are spaces where individuals and groups can express their identity. And it's fascinating to see how people strive to use public and private spaces for showing their identity in all parts of the world. And you mentioned that private actors and activist programs have emerged to reestablish a Palestinian urban identity in Haifa. You cited in particular practices such as emphasizing the Palestinian folklore or art in neglected part of the city. And we were wondering if you could provide us some practical examples of how these occur in Haifa.
These practices have been, or just the dynamics of Haifa has been very interesting to research by many scholars before me. So I'd like to state that other scholars like Maisa Totry, who's an architect and an urban planner, has done a very specific research about that, but being also part of the scene as a Palestinian artist in Haifa. Professor Rahel Kalosh from the Technion, also Youssef Jabarin, Frat Eisenberg, that have each researched a different phenomena in Haifa. So Haifa is becoming a place that is being researched more in the past 2 decades. What I'm exploring is that how informal practices, that it can be also from the Palestinian side or the Israeli side, and some are joint between Jews and Palestinians, have created different spaces inside the city. For example, of course, the city plays inside a colonial context where the Israeli state has, through the past 70 years, have been trying to eliminate or erase and build on that expense on the Palestinian urban identity and build an Israeli identity. Now, many practices that have been going in the municipality and also by the government that would like to build a model of coexistence in Haifa between Palestinians and Jews, between Arabs and Jews, and this is the very important thing, part of the how this urban identity is constructed. That it eliminates the Palestinian part and basically talks about social relations between Arabs and Jews in the city. So this can be seen through music festivals and in holiday seasons. For example, during Christmas, there's holidays for the Muslim community, Jewish community, Hanukkah, Ramadan, and Christmas. So they do like a big musical festival each year, and or different parts of festival or like theater movement, theaters or musicals that speak both languages. So it's basically talking about cultural differences and not national aspects. And in that sense, that movement have not been very successful because it was perceived by the Palestinians as undermining. And there's now what is happening in the past 2 decades is that Palestinian entrepreneurs have been trying to take advantage of informal places or places that are from the backstage of the city that are underdeveloped, and they use that space to reorganize or reconstruct some Palestinian cultural activities such as art galleries, theaters that happen to discuss social issues of Palestinian social issues such as gender and homosexuality, which is coming to it brings a public space safe enough in the city that we can raise these issues and talk about within the Palestinian community. And but what my research also tries to understand is how in the economic system of the city, there's also other parts of coexistent models that are happening. For example, residential buildings that are both occupied by Palestinians and Jews in the city. They both live together. However, there's no interactions, no cultural interactions, no social interactions. So it does not do much to the life of the city. They just live side by side, they coexist, but they don't have any effect socially or culturally. On other hands, there's mutual communities like Hand in Hand. It's called. It's a organization, private organization, established by Jews and Palestinians in the city that are seeking to build an educational system from kindergarten until high school that are taught in both languages, in Hebrew and Arabic. And this is something that is new in the city because the educational system in Haifa and in general in mixed cities in Israel, it's taught in different languages. So there's Arab schools taught in Arabic for Arabs, and there's Jewish schools taught in Hebrew for Jews. And what they're trying to establish is a communal space for the kids and for the parents and for the growing community of the people that are taking part of these organizations. And they're trying to construct something that is both that is mutual, both Palestinian and Israeli. And this is something that has been going on for the past decade or two. And I'm talking, I describe it as an insurgent practice because they don't get any help from the municipality or the governments. They don't get any budgets, so it's funded by them only. And but however, the impact of such communities is much more is wider than coexistence, like living in the same residential buildings, because they have also events where they do open discussions and they invite the public and they do it in both languages. So just their presence in the urban space does a lot to the city because it gives a space where both identities can exist side by side together. And this is something that is becoming new in the past decade.
I think that what you just described, it's very interesting. The concept of coexistence, it's very important, especially, for example, in public spaces, in general, in all the city of the world. Even, for example, when we talk about gender, we have to think about coexistence between different gender needs and everything. But also, I was quite fascinating about your description about how art it's playing an important role in being able to create this coexistence. And this is something we also discuss in our previous season, the role of art, but especially also the role of informality in the sense of informal practices that start from the bottom and go up to the city and to people. So I would like to understand more your insight about the concept of informality and how much do you believe informality might be more powerful in some cases, such as the one we are discussing now.
Yes, I think specifically in the Palestinian Israeli context, where settler colonial practices have been working for decades in order to eliminate the Palestinian urban identity and the Palestinian identity in general. We can see that just in the past in the past year, just by new laws that are prohibiting raising the Palestinian flag in the public space. So Palestinians, such as myself, can't be shown with the Palestinian flag in my own city in Haifa. It's considered illegal. I would get arrested by that. So what we're doing is that we're painting watermelon, which is in the same colors of the flag, the red, black, green, and white. And we're raising like watermelon pictures as a resistance act against this law. So our presence in the public space is becoming much more limiting as we go further. Like the forces of colonialism within mixed cities and within the space of Israel is becoming even more strict as time goes by, sadly. So all of our practices is in the informal place. I mean, informal is a state that we've been living in from the past 7 decades. It's ongoing. It's changing. There was a part during the first 50 years of the state of Israel. There was an attempt to be more formal and to be more part of the state, to focus on the citizenship and less on the nationality. Like the Palestinians were trying to be part of the Israeli state as citizens of the Israeli state. However, that failed. So the neoliberal system of just getting services without talking about the national aspect and the national rights and equality, and just that model failed in Israel. And so in the past 20 years, 25 years even, this tension has become even more clear, and especially in mixed cities such as Haifa. And I feel like if we take Haifa as an example, the model of informality, the thing is that informality is where the state is where the state neglects to give services, to take responsibility, to afford services and rights to the people. And so in that space, there's much more power from the, like you said, bottom-up dynamics. There's much more power and freedom of private agents and communal agents, also on the community level, not just as individuals, to act, to organize, to construct. So in that sense, I think that there's much more power within the informal settings. Also because if we're talking about top-down modern planning, which is the system in Israel, where the planning is used as a tool to control future spatial configuration, and it's very specific. And as we know, planning is used as a tool to divide resources between different groups. So in that sense, planning as in itself can never be equal in Israel, can never provide an equal outcome, because the process itself in itself is discriminating. So I think in order to create change within the Palestinian community in Israel, and I think also in other disadvantaged communities in such systems, it has to be through informal practices. And I mean, it can be through formal planning. However, it would only be in the political context. But we as planners, as a professional, I would seek more freedom to bottom-up dynamics, to give more freedom to individuals. And this is a professional system that is also working in Jewish sectors as well, because the attempt of modern planning to control future outcomes is also challenged, not only for minorities, but just the need to control such a complex system such as the urban space uh, is becoming much more challenging, and therefore uh, urban complexity, which is the research that I'm focusing on, allows a much more interactive or synchronized planning system that also gives much more freedom for individuals and for the community to construct their own spaces.
Thank you very much. As a final question on your specific research, I would like to understand something related to the role of urban planning. So we believe that, actually, I believe that sometimes urban planning can be a tool for some social battles. So to me, urban planning cannot solve the problem alone because, as you also mentioned now, there is political decision, political interest, economic interests that play a bigger role than what urban planning play. But I think we have role as a tool, let's say, for helping showing whether there is a problem or showing that we can do something. So I would like to understand from you uh, what role can have urban planning, for example, in combating a war and in kind of in somehow try to solve issues of discrimination and erasing of an identity.
Um, I think from the research that I have done, also in the Palestinian society, that I've been looking at the Palestinian society from a historic perspective, because we cannot now come to the specific moment in time and analyze space and social features of a society without understanding its background. I mean, the Palestinian society now is, and the dynamics between the Palestinian society and the Israeli state is a result of ongoing um, political structures and economic features that have played part between the two for decades. And I think it's important to understand that when we come and we want to deal with a specific issue of planning in a specific time frame, we have to understand the gradual process that have led to that. We have to understand in which moment of time this change is, where does it fit? Because change is like the ecological systems or like complicated systems that, as we've discussed, as the urban, it's gradual. It cannot move forward 4 steps, for example. And so I see the planning or the spatial configuration has to be adapted or synchronized to social change. Like it can move forward 1 step at a time, but it needs to be synchronized together. For example, if we're talking about immigrants immigrants from different cultural backgrounds to a neoliberal state, obviously public space would look different. The uses of spaces and how they is used by different genders, by different age groups, it will be different. But however, if we understand the cultural norms of that group and what they need and the differences between what the space is allowing in the sense of law enforcement, I'm not saying also just the spatial configuration of the public space, but how it is, how it behaves, who enforces it. Is it followed by cultural norms or liberal norms? Who are the people that are there? It changes the way people use space. And if planning offers a decision-making process, or it allows individuals to be part of the planning system, also taking into consideration the element of communal organizations, because in liberal regimes we tend to forget the concept of community among individuals. We only relate to the relations between individuals and the state. We need also to take into consideration the role of community within spaces. And the second thing is to allow the construction of a planning system that is suitable and that is synchronized to social change. That it needs to be gradual and it needs to be interconnected with the certain group that is following, that is using the
Urbinary.
We have a final question that we are asking to all our interview. The AESOP conference focused on bridging the gap between the academia and the broader community. So for you, how can we foster meaningful connections and collaboration to translate academic insights into real-world impacts?
I think this is very important also because when you said in the beginning, I worked also in the practitioners field, and I've come to, during my work, I have seen that there's many issues that we were trying to solve, but we were like going in circles because the problem was systematic and not in the specific situation. And I think what the academia does is that, first of all, it shifts the focus from the local to the much more broader dynamics within the system. It investigates systematic approaches, systematic dynamics historically, and so it brings a wider perspective of planning that sometimes can also help to understand what is not working in the specific issue of the planning insight that we're trying to address. And also, I think when we're talking about planning issues, a lot of times we feel like we're the only people that are dealing with this kind of issues. But what the academy does is that we learn from each other, from different countries, from different societies. We learn from experiences that are happening in other parts of the world, and we can share knowledge, and we can exchange information and also learn from that experience. So it can be a very creative process and a much more learning experience for professionals. So I think if the connection between the academia and the academics and practitioners is helpful for both sides, because it allows our research to be much more constructive, implemented, relevant to what is going on in reality. And also it might give a wider perspective to professionals to offer a more creative tools than what they know within the system.
Urbinary.
And for our listeners, stay tuned for our next episode with Nikhil Saha. In the next episode, we are dealing with Nikhil as he discusses the intricate relationship between rivers and Indian civilization. He explores the challenges faced by the community in this ecological sensitive area due conflicting policies and development trajectories, highlighting the need for a nuanced approach, balancing indigenous practices with top-down policies for sustainable development. Urbinary is produced in collaboration with Poliradio, the official radio channel at Politecnico di Milano.
Urbinary, the podcast cataloging the everyday and extraordinary in the city.